Hello, all. Welcome to the latest episode of Chasing Green Arrows. This is going to be a recorded video. We're going to be doing more of these in preseason. This video is going to help you build the ideal Game Week 1 squad. Now, I understand that this is very challenging because there are so many uncertainties, so many factors at play. But I'll adopt a macro level approach and I'll sort of run you through the tips and tricks that you need to follow to build the ideal squad. This applies to not only those who are playing FPL for the first time, but it also applies to the hardcore managers like myself who spend hours and hours in this game just for planning and to achieve a good rank. My first step will be to stay flexible. Now, make a team that I think gives you the flexibility to switch to different players if they perform exceptionally well. So, for example, I refer to the different price points as something which is very critical to give attention to. For instance, in this game, you will see plenty of 5.5 million good forwards this season. Now, while I am tempted to pick two in my draft myself, I sort of know that there's a risk of perhaps over investing in two, because if I invest in two and either of them don't perform well or get injured, for example, João Pedro, Adam Armstrong are in my current team, but this is at the back of my mind that if they fail, I don't have a way to go, and I'll probably potentially have to take a hit to sort of sort that issue out. So ideally, go for different price points. So for example, Isak is 8.5. Go for him. Good price point. Watkins is 9. Maybe one 5.5 million forward. Defense, even though there's plenty of value in 4.5 million defenders this season, I think you should start with at least one premium defender, because if the likes of Trent, Gabriel, Guardiola, they start off really well, you would want to be in a position where you can jump on them very easily. The same applies for the midfield as well. Make sure that you're flexible with the different price points so that you can get to any informed player that you want at any stage in the season. The second tip that I have for you is to pay particular attention to your player allocation. Now, as we know, FPL has this rule where we can select 3 players per club. It's a quota that we have to follow. Now, it's crucial that we make full use of our resources to increase maximum efficiency. So, for example, you don't want to have, let's say, a bench fodder from the top clubs, Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool, because there's every possibility that you might want to triple up on these teams at any point in the season when they have a good run of fixtures or when they hit form. So make sure that you're investing in the best possible players in the best possible clubs, right? Do not sacrifice on those picks and make full use of your player allocation. The third point that I have is not to plan too far ahead. I like planning for, let's say, a mid-size horizon, which I refer to as 7-8 game weeks. Now, when I'm making my game week 1 team, I look at the first 7-8 fixtures for each team, and I build my wild card, my first week squad around that. Having said that, if you look at the fixtures for, let's say, the first 12 or 15, I think you're just not doing things correctly. Because while it's important to have a long-term plan, it's also important to focus on short-term points. So it's very important to strike the right balance between long-term planning, which will help you to maximize and make efficient use of your transfers, especially now that we have this rule where you can roll your 5 transfers. It's important to have a robust squad, but it's at the same time, it's also important to have those players who have good fixtures in the short run. My fourth tip for people listening is to back proven players. Now, this has been something which has caught me out in the past as well. New players signing into the Premier League, they're like shiny new toys everyone wants to jump on when the season starts. Of course, it may be a player you followed in some other league and you see potential in him and you think that he can perform well in the Premier League. But I think a safer way of playing this game is to back proven players who are tried and tested, who've done it in the past. There are very few players who have hit the ground running in the league. And I think when you're building a game week 1 squad, it's important to minimize such players. For example, you can pick 1 or 2, but like in a squad of 15, I don't think I would go with more than 2. For example, especially when it comes to the attackers, because it's very, very risky sort of investing in these kind of players who haven't been tried and tested in the Premier League in the past. My fifth tip is to go easy on differentials. Now, I am thought of as a risk averse, boring manager who tends to just play by the book and tends to play very, very safely. So it's no surprise to see, for you to see me say that you should go easy on differentials. But there's a reason why I say that at this stage of the season, is because there's a template which will exist before game week one for a reason, and it's important not to stray too far away from it. Again, I will refer back to the five transfer rule that FPL have announced this season. With that rule, it's very, very important to start quickly. Now, if you start with differentials early on, sure, there's every possibility that you can get ahead of the curve. But if you fall behind it or far behind it, then it will be very difficult to catch up, given the fact that other managers will be in a position where they can perhaps navigate the rest of the game weeks better with this transfer rule in place. So this strategy will help you to manage early season risks and handle the element of unpredictability effectively. My sixth tip is something which I think is a very common mistake that FPL managers make, and I personally know a lot of people who are my friends who make this mistake season in, season out, and this is to ignore personal biases. Now, I can totally understand that people support certain clubs and they want their players from those clubs to perform well, but it's very important in FPL to avoid showing excessive favoritism towards players from clubs you support. At the same time, I think this also sort of applies to players who you've picked in the past and who haven't really performed well. For example, player X might not have performed well for you in the past or might have been a bit of a troll, but that does not mean that he won't be a good pick this season because, for example, he might be in form or have a good run of fixtures or maybe a bargain for his price. So it's very important to make sure that these past experiences don't affect your thinking and your rationale. My seventh tip is to aim for a short starters. Now, this thing is easier said than done. It seems very easy to follow and implement when you're building your game week one squad, but I don't think a lot of people follow it as religiously as I think it should be followed. I think expected minutes are king in this game. When the interest for FPL is at its peak, we've already seen I don't know, God know how many signups we've already seen this season. When you're competing with that sort of competition and that number of players and managers, what will set you apart from the rest of the pack is the fact that you can get the expected minutes right for a lot of players. It's a very important not to start with rotation prone players at the beginning of the season. This is why I like the likes of, for example, Bruno Fernandes, Eberechi Eze. I think those two players this season in particular I really like. 90-minute men on set pieces, no risk of getting subbed early, absolute talisman for their team, decent fixtures to begin with. These are the sort of players I think you should begin with when you're starting the season. It's very important to sort of balance the pursuit of potential high scoring assets and the risk of early transfers early on the season. I think it's a very delicate task actually. So it's just, in my opinion, this also actually applies to injury prone players in your squad. So for example, the likes of Callum Wilson in previous seasons, or Mikel Antonio, these players are, made of glass actually. They tend to get injured after every 2 or 3 game weeks. They don't really have the longevity of some of the other players in the league who can play minutes, for example, like Bruno Fernandes I mentioned. It's very important to avoid players who tend to get injured who are rotation risk. So go for players who you think will play the maximum number of minutes. My final tip for you in this video is to plan not to use a lot of your chips early. Now, I see a lot of managers who are, who might use the bench boost in game week 1, or are planning to, they plan to use, for example, Haaland will have Ipswich in game week 2 and people might want to triple captain him. I don't think that's the best use of your chips early on. A lot of people sort of fall into this trap to make, in the pursuit of a rapid start. But I think the most effective strategy is to hold your chips till Christmas to then react to the double game weeks, because I personally feel that bench boost, free hit, triple captain, all these chips, they're sort of better used in the doubles and the blanks later on in the season. Wildcard can be done early. I'm depending on how your squad is. If you've sort of backed the wrong horses before at the start of the season, then it sort of makes sense to wildcard early if your squad needs it. But even then, I won't have a, let's say, a hard and set rule in place, which would basically practically make me wildcard early in the season. So I want to sort of go with the flow as a wildcard as well. I will have a few windows in mind. For example, Game Week 12 is a window which I've sort of earmarked, which is one with fixture swings. But if my squad needs it, I might use it early in the season. But it's not as if I will actively make an effort to wildcard early in the season. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope this has helped. I'll be doing many more in preseason. Uh, before I quit, please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're already putting in a lot of effort in preseason, so any of your support would be much appreciated. It would mean a lot. Good luck and thanks for watching.